morning. We're learning as a schus for Shlema Filan Chai Basarach and Daf Yudches Amid Beis. We had said in the Mishnah had said, if you didn't do the Yitzika, which is the sprinkling of oil, the last sprinkling of oil, like Balal, which is the prior when you sprinkle on oil, you pour an oil into the flour at the beginning of the mincha and mix it. And then we said loy pasas, if you didn't crumble the harder menachos, it's all kosher. Then we say I pasha on pisim rubis, if you broke it into very large pieces, but not into as small as required by folding it over a number of times. All these things are not makav and it's kosher. So we had said, what is lo yotzak? But we know that you have to do yitzika. It is ma'akev. The Torah says it says la'akev. So we say it means lo yotzak kayin elazar. It means that if instead of a kayin doing the yitzika, it was done by a zar, that's not ma'akev. Okay. Anyway, we're up to the 2 dots, 7 lines down on Yud Chesem Beis. Or if he broke it up into large pieces, we said it's kosher. In fact, Gemara in the Mishnah already said, like pasas, if he didn't do the psis at all, if he didn't crumble at all, it's kosher. Pisa merubis mibaye. What's the point of telling us that if you didn't crumble it at all, that it's kosher? And then you say if you crumbled it, but you only made it into large pieces, it's kosher. Of course, if you didn't do anything at all, it'd still be kosher. So my piece of merubah is shariv psisasim. It means if he cut it, he crumbled it into very small pieces. He did a lot of psisa, a lot of the act of crumbling. Viba is saying elam piece of merubah is mamish. Or says another possibility is no, it doesn't mean that he crumbled it into large pieces. If he didn't do any psis at all, like the Mishnah says, like pasas, it's kosher, then it's kosher because it's a challah. It's not. He crumbled it partially, so now it's no longer a challah. But he didn't make it into crumbs. He didn't finish crumbling it. Maybe that would be possible. Kamash Malon. So that's what the Mishnah is coming to tell you, that it's still going to be kosher. Lemas is in like Reb Shimon. Now the Gemara asks a different question. Let's say our Mishnah is not like Rav Shimon. The Gemara on Amud Aleph had said, when it said lo yotzak, if he didn't do yitzika, it's kosher. We said that just means if it was done by a zar, it's kosher, but not that you skip yitzika altogether. So Gemara, this mission is not like Rav Shimon. The time of Shimon Omer, kol koyin she'einu moide ba'avoda. Any koyin who does not concede, who does not acknowledge that the avoda is being done l'shem shamayim. That's the way Rashi and Chulin understands this. Ein lechelik b'gehuna. He's not going to get the chelik hakahuna that's supposed to be distributed to them. The shaykh, the chazah b'shaykh. Shenema Amakav as Dama Shlama Vesachelev B'nei Aaron Lo Yisi a Sheikh Hayamin Lamana. He gets Sheikh Hayamin. Moida Bavoida Yesh Chelik B'Chuna Sheina Moida Bavoida Eli Chelik B'Chuna. Only those who are Moida get Amakav as Dama Shlama means the ones who do the Avoida of Halacha and they bring the Imurim to the Mizbeach. So Sheina Moida Bavoida Eli Chelik, they don't get it. That would only tell you these avodas that are mentioned in the pasuk, the avodas of Halacha. Minayin l'Rabbis tesav of avodas. What do we know? It includes all the avodas that are done by a kohen, which is a yitzika, doing yitzika shemen. So we see over here that yitzika is also done by the kohen. Bablilas and the second mixing, absisis and the crumbling of the mincha, bamlichas and salting karbanos, batnupais, those karbanos that need to be waved, v'hagoshes, and bringing close to the mizbeach of the mincha, v'hakmitzos, and taking the kaimetz, v'aktores, and burning those things down the mizbeach that's supposed to be burnt, v'amalikas, doing malika to an oif, v'akabalos, being mikabel the dam, v'azoyas, being Zayrik the Dam, Vahashka Saita, giving the May Saita to a Saita, Varibas Egla, and splitting the head of the Egla Arufa, Utyrus Mitzara, being Matal Mitzara, Nasias Kapayim, and the Nasias Kapayim, meaning Dichoning, Beimivnim, Beimachutz, whether it's talking about the Nasias Kapayim in the Beis Hamikdash, or the Nasias Kapayim that's done in a regular day by a regular kohen. Minayin, how do you know those also that he has to be makabel these as avodas, that it's his avodah? Tamalem b'nei Aaron, avodah mesur b'nei Aaron, kol kohen shein avodah ba ein lechelik b'kuna. It says b'nei Aaron, any avodah that kehanim do, if he denies that he's required to do so, he doesn't get the chelik. But we included that yitzika. And we had understood, the Mishnah had said yitzika is, if you don't do yitzika, is kosher, and the Gemara had asked, but yitzika does have to be done. We know that yitzika is ma'akev. You have to add the shemen. So the Gemara answers that's the last adding of shemen. So Gemara said that just means that if it's done by a zar, it's kosher. But we see over here that the kohen has to do it. So Gemara, it depends which mincha we're talking about. Minchas Yisrael, the bas kmitzahi, the mincha of a yid, of a non-kohen, that needs to have kmitza taken off of it. Since it needs kmitza, so that is when the requirement that it be done by a kohen starts, from kmitza. But what comes before that, meaning when you're mixing together the flour and the oil, and the last thing you do is you do yitzika of shemen on the mincha, that is going to be kosher bazar. The minchas sorry. Minchas kehanim, but a minchas kehanim, there is no dlavas kmitzi, there is no kmitza. It's all burnt on the mizbeach. So there is no line of demarcation between those things that have to be done by a kohen and those that don't. Mikara by yakuna, that needs kahuna on the whole thing. So when we said that you need kahuna on a mincha, that it's ma'akav on the whole thing, that's talking about a minchas kohen. Amalei Rabba michti minchas kehanim heiches rabbi liyitzika. What do you know that you have yitzika? That you add in oil to minchas kohen. In minchas Yisrael, you learn from minchas Yisrael. Mahasam ksheres bizar, avachanami ksher bizar. Rava disagrees. He says no. Since you learn out the din of yitzika altogether by minchas kohenim from minchas Yisrael, so it also is going to have the din that it has to be done by a kohen. It's going to be kosher by a zar, just like a minchas Yisrael. Ikadami Amar Nachman. So this is another version of this memra, and it's really the same version. Just instead of mentioning minchas kohenim, we talk about any mincha that doesn't need kmitza. Which one? Amar Nachman. I'm sorry. Ikadami Amar Nachman. Like kasha. Kam b'nikmatzos, kam b'she'ein nikmatzos. It's limited only to those that are nikmatzos. Those that are nikmatzos, it's kosher bazar prior to kmitza. But those that are not nikmatzos are not, which of course certainly includes that of a what do you say, minchas kohenim. But it will also include other cases that are minchas nesachim, the minchas that come along with a carbon, which are also don't have kmitza because they're fully burnt. Amalei Rava michti she'enik matzos meiches rabbi liyitzika nikmatzos masum ksher b'zar afachanami ksher b'zar. Rava has the same question that we had said before. Before it was just, like we said, limited to minchas kohen. Now it also refers to a minchas nesachim. Elamai, you have to say the Mishnah is not like Rav Shimon. You have to say that we don't have a reason to be. We don't have a way to answer that. It says over here Yitzika. It says Rav Shimon says Yitzika is going to be kosher with a kohen, with if it's done by a zar. I'm sorry, Shimon says the mitzika has to be done by a zar. We don't have a way around it, so we're gonna have to say Shimon is not like our Mishnah. Zak v'gemar, my timer the Rabbanan. What about the Rabbanan who disagree with Shimon? And they say that Yitzika has to be done by a kohen. I'm sorry, is that right? No, the other way around. They disagree with Shimon. Shimon said Yitzika can be done by a kohen, by a zar. Shimon said Yitzika has to be done by a kohen. And the Chachamim in our Mishnah, like the way we explained it, are saying the Yitzika can be even done by a zar. Where do they get the Yitzika can be done even by a zar? It's an avodah. We're mehechatesa. Amar krav yatzak ala Hashem v'nasan ala levayna. Ve'viel bnei Aaron hakohen v'kametz. Pasuk says they'll be yatzak shemen. That's the avodah of Yitzika, of pouring on the shemen. And then it comes to ve'viel bnei Aaron, and it says you bring it to bnei Aaron hakohen v'kametz, and he does the kmitza. Kmitza ve'elach mitzvah kahuna. It's saying that the requirement of doing kmitza, through the Kehanim, is just starting from kmitza. But before that, but Yitzika Blila that come before that can be even done by Yazar. So of Shimon Aaron HaKayanim, what does a Shimon do with this? Why doesn't he make the same limud? Mikra Nidish Lefanav La'achruf. He holds that even though it says Abnei Aaron HaKayanim v'kamatz, so that seems to say only from that point on. He says no. The pasuk says Bnei Aaron HaKayanim is also referring to what the pasuk described before that, which was the Yitzika. So that will apply. The Chacham will say, or Shimon will say, it will apply to that as well, and that also is going to need Bnei Aaron. Is it true that Shimon darshans a pasuk when you talk about two things, and in middle of it, it says a requirement. Like in our case, it says first Yitzika, then it says Bnei Aaron, then it says Kmitza. That Rav Shimon's saying that the requirement of Bnei Aaron is going to go both on what came before and what came after. Is that true about Tanya? Whenever we know the rule is, whenever it says etzbay, we had this a few blot ago, it means biyamin, with the right hand. And it says etzbay. He should put it on the mizbeach. So it says meaning he takes it with his right hand, the Kabbalah, and then he puts it on the mizbeach with his right hand. Tells you that the Kabbalah of the dam has to be done with his right hand. And then it says Nosan, which is talking about putting on the mizbeach, that also has to be the right hand. It doesn't say yad on the first part, on the lokach hakoyin. It said it afterwards. Therefore, you can even do Kabbalah with the left hand. So you see, he's not darshaning lefanov. He's only darshaning la'achrav. The reason for Shimon is because he holds that mikra is nidrash only la'achrav, not lefanov. Zok the Gemara, elahaina time of the Rav Shimon. So Rav Shimon comes from there's a different reason why he says that Yitzika is going to be ma'aka. You need a kain. The pasuk, that original pasuk that said, it says vehevia. The vav is coming to tell you that it's not stam, that it's a new thing. It's coming to unite it with the previous pasuk, which talked about the Yitzika. So therefore, Yitzika also has to be with Bnei Aaron. Doesn't really hold that a vav is ma'asav alin rishon. Is that his rule? Elamayat. It says that you should shecht the. This is talking about the Kabbalah. This is talking about the Kabbalah and the Zrika of the dam. So we say Mekabbalah velech mitzvah kuna malaman al shchita sheksher bezar. It says v'shachar is ben abakar v'krivay b'nei Aaron. It has a vav, and it says never. Even so, we say only mikabel elech has to be done by a kohen, but the shechita could be done with a zar. Either of Shimon Vav Moisav al Inyan Rishain Shchita Hachanami Bizar Psula. If you say Vav Moisef, let the Shchita also require Kahuna, and we know that Shchita can be done by a zar. So the Mar Shani also that will come with Samach v'Shachat. We make a Hakish. It says v'Shamach and it says v'Shachat. Mas Micha Bizarim. It took the previous pasuk. The pasuk. I'm sorry. Right after Shchita also says, which is I think it's this previous pasuk. Yeah, the Samach Yadei al Reish Ha'olav and Nitzel el Chaper Olav. Talking about the requirement of smicha, and then right afterwards it says v'Shachat. So mas smicha bezarim. Just like smicha is done by the bailam, which is zarim, av shchita is bezar. So if that's the case, mas smicha bailam, av shchita bailam. So why don't you go all the way? If you're saying you learn v'samach v'shachat to be makesh the smicha to the shchita, so let's say that shchita, just like smicha has to be done by the bailam, it can't be done by any zar. So who limits the summit? Kavachaymer. Could you learn it from a kavachaymer? That can't be the case. Umazri kadeka kapara leboy bailim shchita delavik kapara loy kol shekain. If zrika, which is the final makab patish that is mechaper, that's when you get hartzah. That's when the carbon is accepted that the bailim get a kapara, and it doesn't need to be done. Zrika doesn't have to be done by bailim. How do we know it doesn't have to be done by bailim? Because it's done by a kohen. So it certainly can't be done by bailim. Most people who bring a carbon are not kehanim. Shchita delavika kapara like kolshkein. Certainly shchita is not going to require bailim. B'chitema ain't done an efsher mishi efsher. You'll say, how could you learn that? That which which the bailim don't do zrika, it's just because it's impossible since it's required to be done by a kohen. Clearly, it can't be required to be done by the bailim. But it's just it's impossible to say such a thing. But that can't teach you that shchita shouldn't be required to be done by bailam, since shchita can be done even by a zar. It could be done by bailam. So maybe let's learn out from the samach that shchita also needs to be by bailam. So Gemara Goli Rachmana b'Yom Kippurim v'shachar esparchat shaloi v'chal the shchita ba'amal loy be'inim bailam. Since it says on Yom Kippur the avodah that's done by the kohen gadol, it says the kohen gadol has to bring his own carbon, that is done by bailim. But that tells you that generally shchita is not done by bailim, because if it was the case, why would you have to say in Yom Kippur that the kohen gadol is required to shecht his carbon? Now we move on to a slightly different thing. Whenever the Torah says a lashon of Torah, and we assume now at this point, and chukah, that's telling you that whatever din is described in that pasuk is required. If you don't do it, the carbon is going to be pasul. Whatever that avoid is going to be pasul. So you need both Torah and you need chukah. Like it says by the paraduma, zayis chukah satira, that all what the parts of the thing that the Torah describes by the paraduma is la'aka. It says only the Torah only says Torah. So it's Torah Sanozer, I guess. Avam Rav Tnufa ben Nazar Ma'akev, and Rav says Tnufa by a Nazar is Ma'akev, and it didn't say Chukah. It only said one of the two lashonos. The pasuk says, what's the pasuk? Zois Torah Sanozer Sheyider Kabbalah L'Shem Al Nizray. That's what Ken Yasa. Command since it says Ken Yasa, in addition to the fact that it says Torah, it's as if it also said Chukah. Ken Yasa is a exhortation to do it exactly as described, so it's as if it said Chukah. Practically, Marari Taida like Siva Torah. It doesn't say Chukah by the Taida, which is the carbon that's brought together with 40 loaves of 10 loaves each. The 4 groups of Titus that are brought are ma'akev one another, even though it doesn't say chukah. The Torah says, which tells you the precise portion, proportions of silas, of flour and oil that you need to have by a Mitzaira. I'm sorry, by a Taida, and it says, and it's coming to tell you that the Shalmi Nazir have to have the same proportions, like we said, by the Chalois of the Taida. By Mitzaira, it says Taira doesn't say Chug. The four different types of flowers the four things that a Mitzaira brings, which are the eight eres, the cedar wood, the shnisai las, and the red string, the aziv, and the twig, the tzipirim, and the birds. Those four things are mitzayir. Ma'akman zeh, you need all four of them to be mitzayir mitzayir. So shani hasam kivin dechsev zoisti yatayir sa mitzayir kaman dechsev be chukadomi. Again, it has a lashon that takes the place of the word chuka to tell you that it's ma'akav, that mitzayir is ma'akav. It's the other way around. On Yom Kippur, it only says chukah. Utnan shnei seirim Yom Kippur ma'akman zeh, the two seirim, the Sar Lashem and the Sar Lazazel. You have to have both of them. If one of them is missing, it's ma'akav. You don't have to have both Torah and chukah. The Gemara finally comes to that realization. You only have to have one of those words. So all the other things we can answer without those limuda. We say about many karbanos say Zois Torah, and we don't say that all of the different, there are many parts of the bringing of a carbon that are ma'akev, right? They muram are ma'akev, different things are ma'akev, and even though it says Torah, it's not a two-way street. Even though we say Torah and chukah, what it really means is chukah is ma'akev, Torah without chukah is not going to be ma'akev. In fact, the Marava Torah v'chukah kamar. He said Torah v'chukah. Hachi kamar. Avagav dechsev Torah iksiv v'chukah in iloi iloi. Even though it says Torah, if it says chukah, it will be ma'akev. If not, not. So this is very strange. Like, what does that mean? You say, why are you saying Torah and chukah? And then we're saying afterwards, it just means chukah. So if you see the Taisvis, 2 lines down and 3 lines down in the white line, Torah by chukah b'chula by Torah, I'm Rabbeinu Tam. The chol makan dem chukah ikuva loy mashmeusa elam gzeir shava yafin la bereish perik gimel beis zvacham. He says you learn it out from a gzeir shava that chukah is ma'akev. Originally, we had thought that it comes from the lashon of chukah. That means when the Torah says a Torah or chukah, that means it's a rule. The Torah is telling you have to do this law. So we had thought that both words sound the same. So we thought you have to have both laws. Then we said it's one of the laws. But in the end, what he's saying is, it means chukah is we learn out from Gzeir Shava that it's ma'akev, and Torah, even though it's the same word essentially, since it's not a Gzeir Shava, Rav is saying it's not ma'akev. It says chukah by mincha. Rav says a rule that when the Torah repeats itself by the mincha, that's telling you it's ma'akev. Hechser in loy, hechser loy. It's mashma only because the Torah repeats itself. But just from the fact that the Torah said chukah, it's not going to be ma'akev. Why should that be? Why don't we, according to Rav, chukah itself is ma'akev? So Shani Hasa Mincha is different. Where did it say chukah? It said Kol Zachar b'mnei Aaron Yoichel Yoichelana Chak Olam. So the Torah is saying the chak about the eating of the mincha. So when it's referring to the eating, that's not talking about the avodas hamincha. So that chukah is not going to tell you to be ma'akev. That's what you need to have, according to Rav, that it's said over twice in order to be ma'akev. The Torah says chukah on it, legabe the eating. It's Utnan shnei shtarim ma'akman zeh. And now, even so, the two lechem aponim, the two sedarim of the lechem aponim are ma'ak of one another, and shnei bezichim ma'akman zeh, and the two spoons of levina are also ma'ak of hazeh. So bezichim ma'akman zeh. So you see that even though it says chukah legabi the achila of the lechem aponim, it still is ma'akev. But the Gemara and for the Gemara shani hasam mincha is different. Amakra migirsha umishamna. Rashi says it could have said migerish umishaman. The fact it says migirsha umishaman mishamna, that's telling you that the chukah that says by mincha is not going to tell you ma'akev. It has to be because it says migerish umishaman from the migirsha umishamna from its gerish and its shemen. That's telling you that it's ma'akev. So it tells you that the chukah was not able to tell you that it's ma'akev. So they skip the next few words because that's really part of the next thing. Shmuel says, he says only Gerish Hashem is ma'akev. Like we said, because it could have said Girsha Mishamna, only that is ma'akev, but nothing else is ma'akev. Shmuel avagav the Tanabei Kra like ma'akev. So according to Shmuel, it's coming out that other than Lagabi the Gerish and Shemen, the oil and the silas, even though it's when it's Mishana, when it says twice, it's not Ma'akev. Can that be such a thing? We know that the rule is in Kachim, the Lo Shana Lavel La'akev. Ela Kol Heicha, Ela Kol Heicha, the Tana Beikra, Vade Ma'akev. Einachanami, when it's repeated, it's Ma'akev. V'hacha, the Maloi Kumtzoi B'Kumtzoi Kamifagi. Over here, the Machlekes L'Gabe Mincha relates to the lashon of Kumtzoi from his kaimitz. The Tanya, Maloi Kumtzoi B'Kumtzoi Shaliasa Mida L'Kaimitz. It says Mi Kumtzoi from his kaimitz, meaning from the hand of the kayin, not using another kli that has that same shear. Rav Sava Hanami Tana Beikra. To say Vayikra V'Zamincha V'Yamalekapa Mimena. He says we also have a pasuk for that. It doesn't have to come from kumtzai. It says the gabi the miluim by Shas at the beginning of the Beis Hamikdash. It says that he brought the mincha and he filled his hand from it. So you see, it was shana lavakosam. Ushmul daris mishayis le'yalfinan. Shmuel says you can't learn it out from there because that's just from the chinuch of the Mishkan. That's only that one time. You can't learn out from there to things that are going to apply permanently. You can use a kli sharis to be mekadesh something that's used for fluids, to be mekadesh fluids, and you could use something that's used for yavish to be mekadesh something that's dry to be mekadesh things that are dry. But something that's fluid can be used for dry. But let me this yavish mekachin halach. But I'm a Shmuel, and Shmuel said, "Loishan elamidis." That's only on things that are used for measuring. Avol mizrakos, the bowls that are used to be mekabel adam, mekachin that could be used even for yavish. Tachsiv shneim malayim silas. It says legabi the miluim that they filled it full of flour. It's not ledairis. That's misha. That's a rule just for that time. And nevertheless, and even so, he learns from there permanently that he could always use the mizrakais, the bowls that are used for lach, even for yavish. So Kamar Shani Hasan the Tana Bakra traces him. And since it says 12 times by the Mishkan, by the putting together the Mishkan, that's enough to tell you that it's a rule, even though normally we wouldn't learn out something ledairis from Shah, from the Matanas of the Nesiim, that would not tell you, but since it's 12 times it says from the Nesiim, we can learn from it. Okay, we'll stop over here. Shkayach.
What time is Shabbos?